You are on the Frenzy feed.
The Professor Frenzy Show!
Professor Frenzy, it's a show. Professor Frenzy Show. Professor Frenzy, it's a show. Professor Frenzy Show.
Hello, and welcome to the Professor Frenzy Show. My name is Jerry.
And I'm Chris.
And we are your hosts.
On the Professor Frenzy Show, we are going to try to spotlight some smaller publishers' comics that we think deserve some attention. We aren't going to rate or score comics. We aren't really even going to be reviewing comics. We're just going to talk about some that we think people should consider reading.
So, Chris, have you read any good comics lately?
Yes, Prof, it's been a minute.
Yeah, it has.
We've got a few mutual reads, so we'll start right there. We'll start with Narco #1 from Image Comics, written by Doug Wagner, art done by Daniel Hillyard, and priced at $3.99. Well, Prof, let's see if I remember how to do this. I'll let you take the floor, and then we'll pick this apart.
Great. So we meet Marcus, and he runs a blog about serial killers. And he believes there are more of them out there than people think. And one of them is a Dexter type that kills people using current serial killer MOs and making it so that they get caught. So one item that is surely going to be important is that Marcus passes out when he gets stressed out and his pulse gets over 200. He's like a possum. Marcus is also in love with Jessica, the diner waitress who lives across the hall, I think. She wants him to fix her Wi-Fi in exchange for dinner, wink, wink. Marcus is nervous about that, but agrees. And one night he is waiting for Jess to visit his place, but her ex-boyfriend, Ben, assaults her, which he sees through his door peephole. He calls the cops on Ben, gets stressed, and passes out. He wakes up to find a note under the door saying, "It's dinner at Jess's place on Friday night. Thanks for calling the cops and saving me." He gets ready for his date, and when he goes out, he sees Jess out his door peephole, and she's screaming for his help. But his door is stuck, so he can't open it to go out and help her. He sees Jess and someone behind her, and then blood on the peephole. He passes out. Uh-oh, until next issue. Well, I like these Doug Wagner books quite a lot. The Fashion School Serial Killer one was my favorite of 2025. And I'm not sure exactly what's up with Marcus here. Typically, Wagner's anti-heroes, if you will, are serial killers themselves. But it isn't clear that Marcus is one, yet at least. He's interested in serial killers, and I wonder what happens when he passes out. Does something happen, like he goes and becomes a killer himself, or will he ultimately start to do that? Or is the killer that he's talking about on his blog targeting him now? I'm not sure. There's a lot of possibilities, and I really like the ambiguity here. Who's hurting Jess, and what's Marcus going to do about it? There are a couple of really good scenes I like. Marcus is running on a treadmill. This is just a small detail. He's running on a treadmill, monitoring his blood pressure, his beats per minute. And he's watching it getting closer to 200. And he's wearing a football helmet because, at some point he might pass out and he needs this. Protect his head. I really like that detail. And then there's also a 2-page spread with Marcus getting ready for his date. And I thought that was really charming as he did all the different things, looking in the reflection of the microwave to make sure his teeth, there's nothing in his teeth, stuff like that. I thought this is a charming book. I think these Doug Wagner books are all charming, and I just can't wait to see what happens next. Chris, what did you think about Narco #1?
Thanks, Prof. Good summation. Just to take a step back a little bit there was a lot of anticipatory buzz about this book before it came out, and it was one of those, quote, hot books of the week when this was released, and copies were a little bit harder to find at some of the LCSs across the country, from what I understand. And this particular past week, the first issue had a second printing release, so there's really no excuse for anyone who wants to still get in on the ground floor of this, because I thought it was an outstanding book. Mm-hmm. As with the Doug Wagner books, Prof, like you were just championing these things all along throughout the history of the Professor Frenzy Show, so I applaud you for that. Doug Wagner is very talented, very creative book. I love the premise here. It is a really unique one, with particularly a guy passing out when he gets excited here. And there's a charm to Marcus, too, and there's likability with respect to the characters along with the cast here. You're rooting for him as you are rooting for this couple that hopefully they make it, but then something terrible happens. And you just can't wait to see where it goes. It does everything that a good first issue is supposed to do. It's a unique premise. It engrosses you, and it makes you want to come back for the second issue. It checks off all the boxes. Yeah, Prof, I wonder where this is going to land, respectively. Maybe too soon to tell with our best of list, because Fashion School Serial Killer was your favorite of last year. So we'll see where this goes. I'm very, very intrigued, and I really, really enjoyed this book. It was tough to get a copy when it first came out, but again, it's out there if you want to get on the ground floor to get that second print. I can't wait to see where this goes. I really love the creative team. Want to give props to Hillyard with respect to the artwork. He does great facial expressions with respect to the cast. Love this book. Love the opening issue. Good stuff.
I totally agree. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Our thoughts and impressions on Narco, #1 from Image Comics, priced at $3.99 and for mature readers. Next up, we both looked at Universal Monsters, The Phantom of the Opera, issues #1 and 2 from Skybound Image Comics, written by Tyler Boss, art done by Martin Simmonds. These were $4.99 a piece. Prof, once again, I'll let you take the floor and take a step back myself.
Okay, I'll sum up both issues. So, hey, it's the Paris Opera, baby, and we're doing Faust. Christine Day is the backup diva for the part played by Mademoiselle Biancaroli or something. But when the curtain goes up, Biancaroli has been hung by the neck and is dead, with a figure above the stage laughing, ha 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 ha. Then the chandelier falls into the crowd and there's a mess. So that's pretty early in this story for all this drama. The folks working at the Opera House believe there's a murderous ghost in the building. Christine is interviewed by Inspector Dubert about the murder of Biancaroli. There's some curious back and forth about where they're from. Oh, I'm not from Rickaweir. I'm from Bergheim. Oh, I'm from Bergheim too. Why'd you say Rickaweir? Oh, I don't know. Call me Raoul. Okie dokie, stuff like that. It looks like there's a little bit of spark between the two of them. So the inspector finds a note to presumably Biancaroli telling her to leave Paris, and she presumably didn't listen. And Christine knows a guy, maybe it's her boyfriend, I don't know, Anatole. The Opera House people tell her that she has to get better if she's going to be the, I'd say prima ballerina, but this is opera, but you know what I mean. Anyway, a mysterious hidden man gives her singing lessons, which help her tremendously, and she kills it on her next try. And this ghost phantom guy, we don't know his name, but he's probably in the title somewhere, turns out he's in love with her. But he spies Christine flirting with Inspector Dubert, and when she goes looking for her special ghost maestro, she gets frightened by a rat attack. She eventually finds him and tells him that she has invited Dubert to the opening night. They're from the same town, don't you know? This upsets the Phantom Maestro, and she collapses on stage at her next performance. But her backup falls off the roof. Of her building. So that's, so she's probably not going to get that job. So we'll see what happens. I can't say that I'm an expert at the plot of the Phantom of the Opera. I've seen a few of the movies, and I know that they change it. They all tend to be slightly different. I think this comic seems to be following the plot of the story, though I can't be sure how genuine it is and to what movie or what book. I am having a little trouble actually connecting emotionally to the story. The art is really impressive, but it kind of makes it a little hard to tell people apart and really tell what they're doing and feeling. I've read a lot of books of this creative team before, and I've had a little bit of this issue before, but in this story, I'm finding it particularly strong. I like the idea of what they're doing with the book. I like the story that they're rolling out, but I don't know if I connect to any of the characters yet. Chris, what did you think about Universal Monsters, Phantom of the Opera, books 1 and 2?
Thanks, Prof. Really good spot-on comments. Like you, I had some problems with the character connection. I'll circle back to that in a moment. First off, let's start with the pros. Martin Simmonds' artwork, holy cow, really, really good stuff here, and it has a really nice, authentic painting feel. It looks like everything looks like frame to frame, panel to panel. Just gorgeous stuff here. It's almost a masterpiece, and I'm really, really digging the artwork. kind of reminded me of Bill Sienkiewicz, but not quite as abstract. And I don't want to make it apples and oranges comparison here. Martin Simmonds does his own thing. I really, really like the artwork with respect to it. Just gauzy, great colors. Fantastic stuff here. Prof, you spoke of sort of losing an emotional connection here too, and I think you're onto something, and I felt it myself. And I think this sort of tells us how spoiled we were with the prior Universal Monsters series, because we really, really loved each and every one of these things. And I think one of the things that the prior series did was it told the story from a point of view from a different character, maybe not necessarily the title one here, but this is sort of playing out in its own way with the Phantom of the Opera story that we kind of know. And I dare say I probably have seen more stage productions than I have of the film productions of this. I'm kind of rubbing my chin because I don't know. Is this Christine's story? Is it the Phantom's point of view? Is it Dubert's point of view? I think if it leaned one way with either Christine, the Phantom himself, or Dubert, this might have been somewhat of a more unique take. But I think we're kind of laying the foundation with seeing everybody's point of view, that it's not necessarily a unique story that we've seen in the prior Universal Monster stories here. That said, I know I'm kind of being harsh on it, but I think this sort of has big shoes to fill, because they've really elevated the Universal Monster with the Image titles, that they were some very superior comic books. So far out of the gate, this may be the weakest of the lot, and I hate to say that because the artwork is just so strong, and I really like Tyler Boss as a writer. In the back of the book, we get a piece written by Tyler Boss of how he connected to the Phantom for the first time and what his love of the character was. And I really like when the creator shares their experience that they have with the particular subject matter that they're dealing with, which all the Universal Monsters stories have given us to this point. Boy, I wish I wanted to love this book a lot more than I do, but right now I'm only liking it. That said, I am still going to be on board for the whole run.
Yeah, I agree. There's no way I'm going to drop it.
Yeah. Any other thoughts and comments? I'm glad we sort of met in the middle on this.
Yeah. I mean, I like it well enough, and I think these are it's great having these classic horror stories, universal horror stories, in comic book form. So whether or not one's a success or not, I'm still going to get all of them. So, Chris, what other books did you read?
I'll start with Sleep number 8 from Image Comics, written and drawn by Zander, and priced at $3.99. In the series finale, John wakes up, more or less, from a drug-induced sleep, and we see his conscious internally and his monster form externally. In John's final odyssey, we learn that Mr. Edison is a killer. John's monster metes out a little justice and cares for the body of a victim before succumbing to sleep. The end. Full disclosure, I had a hard time getting on a handle on this, the final issue. Initially, I was thinking John was in some sort of hell and he died and he woke up here. But no, things playing out in this issue were in the literal sense. And after the dust settled, and then even reading a letter in the letter column that told me of all the events and the symbolism I missed, I have to do it to myself and do myself a favor and reread this series in one sitting to get everything and immersed in it all, because I evidently missed a lot. I'll take the easy cop-out and say I read way too many comic books in between issues, but the bottom line is this. Sleep is an outstanding and amazing series, and it's on my personal top 10 list of the year so far. So those are my thoughts and impressions on Sleep number 8 from Image Comics, priced at $3.99 and for mature readers. Next up, Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees, Rite of Spring number 6 from IDW Publishing, priced at $4.99. In the conclusion of this miniseries, the jig is mostly up as serial killer bear Samantha remotely detonates incendiary devices causing fires in various places of Storybrooke, causing hysteria and chaos as an extraction as she can make her getaway. Sam pretty much eliminates anyone who knows she's a killer, either setting them on fire, shooting them, or cutting their throat. Some residents of an old care facility do make it to safety. As for Sam herself, she drives off and away until finding a gas station in the middle of nowhere where she can presumably resume her habit as Storybook tries to figure out what to do. The end. For my thoughts, I initially had some mixed feelings at the end of this series. Perhaps Sam would get her comeuppance, or at the very least get arrested. But it proves that Sam is clever, and this does leave things open for perhaps a future series. As previously stated, this series is in my top 10 list of the year so far. My thoughts and impressions on Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees, Rites of Spring #6 from IDW Publishing, and a book for mature readers. Next up, I had the Twilight Zone #5 from IDW Dark. This was written by L. Marlow Francavilla and Francesco Francavilla. Art done by Francesco Francavilla, priced at $4.99. When a meteorite crashes into the ocean and emits strange sounds, a shunned female acoustics expert is called in to join a male crew to get into a submersible and to study it, and if necessary, destroy it. When the meteorite seemingly gets fish to act hostile and attack the males, the men want to destroy the meteorite, but it calls out to the woman with a noise that only she can hear, telling the men it must not be destroyed. With the men perishing and the submersible coming back, we see the switcheroo, that the woman is now under the alien influence from the meteorite, and it now spreads to another fellow male scientist. The end. My thoughts. I didn't see this ending coming, as I had hoped the ignored female was right, but the sounds were indeed evil. This was great. It had some nice black and white artwork and a decent twist ending to make for a worthwhile issue. My thoughts and impressions on the Twilight Zone #5 from IDW Dark, priced at $4.99, and a book for mature readers. Next up, I had White Sky #2 from Image Comics, written by William Harms, art done by J.P. Mavinga, priced at $3.99. In the post-apocalyptic San Francisco area, female teen Violet begins to look for her father, who was kidnapped by a gang led by a guy named Lewis, but it seems the gang left a guy named Walter behind. So Lewis shoots and kills a couple of the guys in the gang. Violet, still hearing disembodied spirit voices, finds Walter, and Walter leads her out of some initial peril, but another of the Lewis's-led gang then closes in on her. To be continued. Wow, no second issue itis here. There's going to be obviously some comparisons to Walking Dead, but I think this is his own thing, and this has got some solid artwork, and I'm still trying to get a handle on this with these ghost entities. The narrative moves along, though, and we have a new quest beginning. Those are my thoughts and impressions on White Sky #2 from Image Comics, priced at $3.99, and presumably for mature readers. Next up, another second issue. I had Dork #2 from Image Comics, written and drawn by Brett Bean, priced at $3.99. In this issue, Dork runs afoul of a Time Lord who has brainwashed children as time thieves, and they attack Dork, his talking shield, and the disembodied chicken. Remember him for the first issue? Well, that character becomes the unlikely hero of this humorous and violent story, as the spirit of the chicken embodies the Time Lord and turns back time to turn the battle in our hero's favor, as well as giving lives back of his assassins. Wow. Again, no second issue itis. This is fantastic. This was a fun standalone story with some great art and colors. My thoughts and impressions on Dork #2 from Image Comics, priced at $3.99, and for mature readers. It is. And speaking of sound great, the Rocketeer, the Island #1 from IDW Publishing, written by Jan Layman, art done by Jacob Edgar, priced at $4.99. In this one, once again, Cliff finds himself on the outs with Betty, who is hooked up with a new beau, and he will take her on a cruise. A mysterious man tasks Cliff with finding the recently missing Amelia Earhart, who Cliff met a few years earlier. And he takes a ship with, surprise, surprise, Betty and her wealthy new boyfriend. As the captain of the ship is introduced, it's Captain Seeger, who looks an awful lot like Popeye. And we also meet on the ship Tintin and his dog Snowy. Yes, that Tintin and Snowy. During rough waters, Cliff dons his rocket packet to save another female archaeologist, which of course amps up the jealousy factor between Cliff and Betty as they approach Skull Island. To be continued. Wow. This was a great read. It was fun, and we had some classic characters that really made me put a smile on my face, and it also made me wonder if some of these characters are now in public domain. At any rate, Edgar's art kind of sort of reminded me of Paul Dini with a vibe, but this was a really fun adventure and adventure ahoy. My thoughts and impressions on the Rocketeer, the Island #1 from IDW, priced at $4.99. Didn't see an immediate rating, but I'd probably say this is teen and up. Yes, next up, something for the adults. This was Tigress Island #1 of 5 from Image Comics, written by Patrick Kindlon, art done by, I'm not sure if that's pronounced Epic, but it's EPHK. This was priced at $3.99. And this one, in 1987 Hong Kong, 6 models/actresses from various parts of the world go on an escort gig, and they are drugged and kidnapped. They awaken on an island with a woman not named Maxwell, but Sonora, who takes them to an opulent building with other captured women. While Sonora is kind of vague, one of the captured women holds something sharp to another woman's throat and demands answers. To be continued. Wow, this was another one of those, quote, hot books on the day of its release. I don't know what it's worth now, but as for the comic itself, yes, there is a creepiness factor to this, but I hope the characters will sort of be fleshed out once we move on to the second issue as we go. I don't know if I've seen EPHK's artwork before. It's a little cartoony, but I don't mean that in the negative sense. There was enough here for a first issue to make me mildly curious and come back for the second issue. My thoughts and impressions on Tigress Island, 1 of 5 from Image Comics, priced at $3.99, and for mature readers. Yep, and speaking of for mature readers, next up I had Exquisite Corpses, number 11 from Image Comics, written by Grayson with James Tynion IV. Thank you, Professor Allen. Art done by Gavin Fullerton with Michael Walsh. This was priced at $4.99. Cutting to the chase. Mom Amber kills Lady Carolina. Shoot. Sorry, Robin. Painful. Yes, Rascal Randy is done too. This leaves Pretty Boy versus the Fox Mask Killer as the remaining two, with 2 issues to go in this series, where serial killers representing 13 states kill it out for power of the country and thus the world, and they're playing it out in rural Maine. Now, as per usual, the violence and the gore is way over the top. And also, as per usual, stay away if you are a sensitive reader. But if you're a fan of the series, and I'm sure you're loving the twists and turns of this title, and like me, you will have no idea how this one's going to end. My short thoughts and impressions on Exquisite Corpses number 11 from Image Comics, priced at $4.99, and for mature readers. Next up, I had Red Book number 4 from Dark Horse Comics. This is written by James Tynion IV. Thank you, Professor Allen. Art done by Michael Avon Oming, price at $4.99. This miniseries concludes with some more accounts of UFO sightings in China, and it wraps up by exposing alleged suppression methods and tactics used by the U.S. government against UFOologists trying to get to the truth of behind what upper echelons know. My thoughts and impressions. I really, really love stories of purported UFO encounters and the conspiracies, so this miniseries was right up my alley. If this is your thing too, then Red Book is for you. My thoughts and impressions on Red Book. This was the 4th and final issue from Dark Horse Comics, priced at $4.99. Didn't see an immediate rating on this, but I'd probably say this is for a teen audience and above. Next up, I had Dick Tracy, the St. Patrick's Day special. It was a one-shot from Mad Cave Studios. We had 2 stories in this one. We had Irish Goodbye, written by Alex Segura and Michael Marici, art done by Craig Chermak. And then we had the short of it. This was written by Tim Seeley and art done by Rebecca Isaacs for $6.99. In the first story, villain 88 Keys takes out a cheating criminal, and also, not to be outdone, he takes out a cheating politician as well. Both of them alike before Dick Tracy and Sam Ketchum catch up to them. See what I did there? In the second story, 9-foot-tall Acres O'Reilly comes to the aid of a leprechaun named Jack McNally, only for her to take the fall for him. Wow, both of these stories had a fresh take on classic Dick Tracy characters told from the villain's point of view, which you don't see too often in Dick Tracy stories. Now, this one didn't so have the action and the peril with Dick Tracy, but the requisite violence certainly was there for sure. My thoughts and impressions on Dick Tracy, the St. Patrick's Day special one-shot from Mad Cave Studios, priced at $6.99 and for mature readers. Next up, I had Ripcord, number 2 from Ignition Press, written by Cullen Bunn, art done by Annika, priced at $4.99. Ripcord is a synthetic addictive drug in an apocalyptic Australian outback, where female Dylan is looking for her sister. She fends off red-eyed wolves, as last seen in the first issue, and returns to the bar from the last issue, where she now befriends a guy named Colby, who stitches her wounds and shows her a cave with weapons. It seems that drug-running /slave trader bikers show up looking for their buddies that Dylan took out in the previous issue. And these guys meet a worse fate. They get shot up by Dylan. And then we smash cut to a female baddie named Sarah holding Dylan's sister, to be continued. No second issue itis, as this moves the narrative and introduces some new characters. However, this is not for the kiddies, as the violence is quite gory. My thoughts and impressions on Ripcord number 2 from Ignition Press, priced at $4.99. Next up, let's see, I had G.I. Joe Silent Missions, The Baroness, number 1. This was a one-shot from Image Comics. We had the writer of Declan Shavely and art done by Joel Jones. It was priced at $3.99. Piggybacking off of the one-shots of the no-dialogue stories of the G.I. Joe heroes last year, which piggybacked off the classic Larry Hama G.I. Joe number 23 with no dialogue from 1983, comes the first of what I presume will be a series of no-dialogue one-shots, but this time with the G.I. Joe villains. First up, the Baroness. Now, from what I gather, both the Baroness and Destro have accepted a mission to assassinate someone in attendance at an opera/theater event. It seems that the Baroness, though, has to go through more rigmarole with being covert about it. The villains fight it out as to who will ultimately take out the target, settle it in their own way, and then have a romantic dinner where one leaves the other the bill. There's a lot of storytelling and action. I was a little confused in some places here and there, but I love the no-dialogue storytelling format, and there was some nice artwork too. My thoughts and impressions on G.I. Joe Silent Missions, The Baroness number 1. It was a one-shot from Image Comics, priced at $3.99. I would probably say this is for a teen audience and older. Next up, I had Butch, a hate comic. This was a one-shot from Fantagraphic Books, written and drawn by Peter Baggy, priced at $5.99. After the events of the last hate comic, Buddy's younger brother Butch shoots at what he thought was a trespasser in the woods, only to be arrested for shooting at the guy and his dog. Now, while his attorney wants him to plead guilty, Butch decides to fight it. Matters escalate with Butch going on a podcast and then later to a convention in Las Vegas. Yes, Butch is still ignorant, angry, and unemployed, and in the end, he takes an unconventional approach to get a job. The end. Full disclosure, I am tap dancing around some perceived political views of the characters. This may not be for everyone, but I will always be grateful when Bag does provide us with an update on the Bradley family. This is my thoughts and impressions on Butch, a hate comic. This is a one-shot from Fantagraphics, $5.99, and for adults. And next up, I had Octavia, number 1 from Mike Hoffman Publishing, written by Mike Hoffman, Enrico Teodoriani, art done by Mike Hoffman, Rolando Cicatelli, and Zano. It was $8.95. This is a black and white magazine from the makers of the Eerie magazine, but this one has a female-led character. The highlights are the first and last stories, focusing on the title character. It opens with a hunter who kills an ibex on Octavia's land, so she exacts her own justice with a sorcery and surgery by putting the hunter's head on the ibex's body and the ibex's head on the hunter's body so the defenseless hunter can get an idea of what it's like to be brutally killed. The hunter awakens again, thinking what he experienced was a dream, but he then looks in the mirror and he sees stitches around his neck, proving that his nightmare was all too real. The final story has Octavia in an Iron Maiden and then coming back to life centuries later as a castle's caretaker. A group of men and women who want to use the castle as a set for some saucy cosplay pictures and videos really draws the ire out of Octavia, and her vanity gets the better of her as she's overpowered and apparently meets her demise. My thoughts and impressions. I didn't expect the title character getting killed in the last panel of the story, so I really don't know where the magazine can go from here. But if she can come back to life once, perhaps she can do it again. I like the vibe and the flavor of the book. The black and white magazine harkens to the old Warrens for me, but as with Eerie, I think this needs an issue or two to find its footing. For what it's worth, Octavia is a bit more adult than Eerie, and this did have some brief nudity. My thoughts and impressions on Octavia, number 1 from Mike Hoffman Publishing, priced at $8.95. And thank you. And then finally, I had Mad About DC, a one-shot from DC Comics, written and drawn not by the usual gang of idiots, priced at $7.99. Okay, yes, I admit it, I am cheating by mentioning a DC book, but regulars of the podcast know of my fondness for Mad. There are 40 gags in just over 60 pages, so I think one gets their money's worth here. As DC pokes fun at cons, fandom, their characters, and themselves, the creators. Yes, there is a requisite Mad fold-in, and while most of the creators, notably Chip Zdarsky from the comics, are working on this issue, Mad favorite Sergio Aragonés also gets in on the act, looking at comic book shops. I love it, and if I'm critical of anything of this issue, it's really those who also love this, but they're surprised that Mad is still being published, and or they used to like Mad, but they don't think the current Mad is for them. At least I. Okay. My thoughts and impressions on Mad About DC, a one-shot from DC Comics priced at $7.99, and a book presumably for a teen audience and above. Wow. Prof, thank you for your patience. I now yield the floor to you. What other books did you read since our last podcast?
First up, Minor Arcana, number 15 from Boom Studios, written and art by Jeff Lemire, colors by Patricia Delpeche, and letters by Steve Wands. This issue is a flashback to 1983. Bud has been released from prison for killing a woman when he was driving drunk. In prison, he learned tarot, and he shows his daughter Vicky what he has learned. But Vicky's mother and Bud's ex-wife, who is also Bud's ex-wife Lorraine, show up with Vicky's new boyfriend John. Lorraine is upset about Bud showing Vicky all that devil stuff. Bud is staying at the Edgewater Hotel, and when he goes back to the hotel room, someone that heard about his tarot skills is waiting for him. He realizes that this is the husband of the woman he killed driving drunk. When he realizes it, Bud goes into a trance. He sees the dead woman, who isn't upset she's dead. Rather, she's happy because now she's with her son, who drowned when his dad was too drunk to watch him. And she also said, "It isn't totally your fault. I happened to be going through my glove compartment looking for a lighter when you hit me. So, yeah, it's not all your fault." The woman tells Bud to tell her husband that everything is okay. They're waiting for him, but take his time, and he has to move on with his life. The husband says that he wanted to kill Bud at first, but he started having dreams where Bud told him, "We have work to do." So the guy figures this is a message, and the two will work together. Wow, this is such a good book. I really, really like Minor Arcana. I really like Jeff Lemire's work. I like how surprised Bud is about his newfound tarot powers. Also, how the people in this world are almost driven by fate. They have dreams that they follow and visions that give them direction. This is really one of my absolute favorite books out right now. I love the town and the people that surround our main characters. They're all a little bit broken. And I feel like we're starting to get those hints of the backstory we were promised. I'm not holding my breath because we've been tricked before, but hopefully we'll start to get answers. So that's Minor Arcana, number 15. Next up, I read Lands Unknown, The Skinless Man, number 1 from Dark Horse. Story and art by Ben Stenbeck, and colors by Dave Stewart, and letters by Clem Robbins, and it's $4.99. A giantess witch tells a story to a wanderer, his wolf, and a bunny, of all things. Once upon a time, there was an evil man called El Kubra, who was king in the Valley of Thieves. But he appeared as if he didn't have skin, so he was called the Skinless Man. He and his men plundered, but finally came across a baby with eyes of gold. This is very auspicious. There's a lot you can do with such a baby. Sell the eyes, eat the baby, whatever. But El Kubra decided he wanted the baby's skin for his own. So he finds 6 brother warlocks, so I guess they're all brothers, even though they don't look the same, to help him. But these warlocks tricked El Kubra and used the power of the baby to cause madness and disease in town. El Kubra finds a giant to help him and his pals. When they get back to town, they see the devastation. El Kubra and the giant fight a warlock turned into a hyena, I think, and stab him with the bone of his own victim, which coincidentally will kill him. So I always wonder why the main plot in a comic is told to someone like the giant witch does here. You know, there are hints that the story will be important to the wanderer and the wolf and the bunny, but it isn't clear why yet, or if it's just symbolically important, if they're not part of the plot, who knows? This book only has 2 issues, so I'm thinking that we're not going to have to wait very long for the resolution. And I think that this book might be the setup for a story series called Tales from Lands Unknown. So we'll see if there's more than 2 issues added onto the story after. We'll see. I don't get why pages are taken up by the story getting interrupted by the bunny and, you know, all those interrupted parts. Sometimes it's important to the plot. Other times I fear that it's just the need to kind of fill out the book pages. We'll see. We'll see what happens here. I'll look at number 2 for sure. So that is Lands Unknown, The Skinless Man, number 1. Next up, I read I Hate Fairyland, number 49 from Image Comics, written by Scotty Young, drawn by Derek Laufman, colors by Juan-Francois Bellieu, and letters by Nate Picos, and that's $3.99. Gert gets a job. Guess what it is? Well, there was a very, very old fairy godmother in town. The old woman was messing up all her magic, giving people the wrong things. The wishes just were terrible, and ultimately she died. Gert pocketed the old woman's wand and now wants to use it. The ghost of the fairy godmother shows up to teach her how to use the wand, but she wasn't that good at it to begin with. And she gets some iffy training and gets her fairy godmother approval from the FG Guild. She's assigned to be the fairy godmother of a pig girl named Betty, who was cut off by her friends. Fairy Gert Mother shows up and offers to make terrible things happen to those false friends. That's just what the doctor orders. They do it. Hair falls out, angry tumors form, pies explode, and dead relatives zombify and attack. The Fairy Godmother Guild shows up and says Gert broke all the rules and they're going to have to take away her wand. Will this be all over for Gert? Will Scotty Young end it for good? What? The end. Well, the ending was weird. So we had the story where Gert didn't care that she was losing her fairy godmother status. She had a new friend in Betty. But Scotty Young appears on the last page, or a drawing of him, suggesting maybe that he might end the Fairyland series for good. Or is this just a meta plot point that'll pay off later? Hard to say for now. I should read solicits more. I have no idea what's happening with these books. I just try to let the stories stand on their own. I don't like to get spoiled or, read what the plans are in the future. I just like to read the stories. I love how awful Gert is. And here, seeing the Fairy Godmother Guild trust her at first, I had to wonder how bright they are. Haven't they read these books before? But I hope this book does not end. So that is I Hate Fairyland, number 49. And finally, I read Barbaric, number 2 from Vault Comics, written by Michael Morici with art by Nathan Gooden, colors by Fabiana Marquez, and letters by And World Design. And that's $6.99. It's an extended page count. Owen, the barbarian, and the little fawn guy face off against Auric and the knight with the flail in a cave where the fawn guy's memories are stored and Soren's magic power comes from. The baddies have Soren deeper in the cave. Owen and Fawn Guy beat the knight and flail, but they're in a cave, so they can't get to Soren. Soren and Auric talk, and he wants to give her more power, but in service to the cave Hydra, where her power comes from anyway, and she wants none of it. Not really sure what's going on there, but there it is. There is this Hydra in the cave, and Soren apparently draws the power from it. Maybe. Owen and Fawn decide to kill the Hydra. Soren gets surrounded by hallucinations of the Hydra, who pretends to be people, friends of her life, even her mother. But Soren's power explodes, and her sister Doxon appears, and Soren messes her up too. There's much fighting, and Owen gets hold of Flail. Auric attacks, and they fight, but Doxon appears all kinds of messed up, and the team insists they will save Soren. I found this issue to be a little confusing. So this has been going on for a while. We have a lot of characters now in the barbaric world, and I've got a little bit of trouble keeping them straight. So if I got something wrong, don't be too surprised, especially with their relationships to each other. However, we do know who our heroes are, Owen and Soren, and probably the Fawn Guy. So I root against everybody else usually. I love the banter between Owen, Axe, and now the Fawn Guy. It's really hysterical. And it's a lot of fun as they snarkily try to figure out what they should do next. Axe always wants to kill to get drunk off of blood, and everybody else kind of has to hold him back. So that was Barbaric, number 2.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to The Professor Frenzy Show. You can find our podcast if you do an iTunes search for The Professor Frenzy Show. You can listen to the show on Twitter and find me on Twitter at Professor Frenzy and Chris at BTO and Batbooks.
Hey, we're on Facebook over the Professor Frenzy Show page. We're on Instagram at Professor Frenzy. We're now also on Amazon Music, and we are now also on YouTube. Just visit youtube.com/Professor Frenzy, all one word. We are now also on TikTok, so go to Professor Frenzy 2 to see our videos.
If you have an Android phone, the Professor Frenzy Show is part of the free network. Just swipe right on your homepage and look in the art section of the podcast lists. Whatever device you use, you can subscribe to our podcast feed by doing an iTunes search for Professor Frenzy.
Thank you for listening to the Professor Frenzy Show. Let us know on Twitter what you think about our show, and please help us get the word out to people that might like these kinds of comics.
Thanks to everyone for listening. We look forward to chatting more about comics next week. And please remember, pick up your pull.
Professor Frenzy. Professor Frenzy.
All original content of the Professor Frenzy Show is licensed under Creative Commons Attribution, No Derivatives 3.0 Unported License.
Professor Frenzy.
You are on the Frenzy Feed.